I worked with Marshall for the brief period of a few months prior to his death. We had a wonderful time. He taught me a lot. He was a real mentor, and he was a very generous person. He had a habit of sort of collecting all sorts of paraphernalia every place he went, recording equipment, posters, artwork, books, and all sorts of stuff, and sort of being a conduit for this stuff. He'd pass it out to other people, and he always did it to stimulate creativity in other people. He started the Maine Festival and did a lot of things that encouraged other people. And at the time of Marshall's death, I was pretty upset, and I flew up to New Haven to Yale to the funeral, and Bobby was officiating, and on the airplane I started writing a poem to try to put my feelings into words. And I used the form and the style of Holman Day that Marshall had introduced me to, and I wrote this poem, which became my first recording on the Bert and I label and the only single in the history of the Bert and I company. It's called The Junk of Marshall Dodge, and it goes like this. I'd like to take your treasures and your trinkets and your junk and load them in a boxcar in 19 steamer trunks. Get some played-out engineer with steam still in his veins from a life of hauling folks and freight from Boston up to Maine, and I'd stoke him with the vision, and I'd enlist him in my scheme to run that train around the world, distributing a dream. And should he chance to ask me who might want this old hodgepodge, I'd say, this ain't just any junk, my friend. It's the junk of Marshall Dodge. Now, with every detail overlooked and only grace to guide us, we'd steam across the continent with Marshall's junk beside us. We'd run that train to every little town along the track. We'd stop and draw a crowd with whistles, bells, and Union Jacks. And as they started gathering, men and kids and ladies large, I'd shout into my megaphone, step up, folks. There's no charge. Feel free to touch the merchandise. It's more than rummage off some barge. You know, this ain't just any junk, my friend. It's the junk of Marshall Dodge. Now, with the help of my assistants just recruited from the crowd, I'd push a button on the floor and bring the music up real loud, and them bolts would snap, and them locks would slide, and them trunks would open wide, and men would peer, and ladies crane to see what lay inside. Don't just stand there, folks, I tell them. Help yourself. This stuff is free, with one small stipulation. Now, listen carefully. Feel free to take whatever strikes your fancy from this heap, but only if you understand it isn't yours to keep. It's only yours to spread around and share with friend and foe. And if you can keep that promise, why, take something before you go, like a book to send a relative who's homely as a stump, or a bicycle that's built for two to help you o'er the humps, or a tape machine to capture tales your Uncle Jasper tells, or a boat that's called the Bluebird too, to skim across the swells, or an anecdote to crack a smile across the sourest face, or a pin to prick the pompous and put them in their place. It's all there for the taking, folks. Pick well or not at all. Oh, we's many hamlets yet to hit whilst circling this ball, and many folks along the way in cities small and large who just like you will gawk and peek and smile when we tell them there's no charge, because this ain't just any junk we're handing out. It's the junk of Marshall Dodge. Thank you for coming. You've been marvelous. Come back to Round Top. You'll be glad you did. Thank you.